There we go. Okay. Well, good afternoon and welcome to our Young Scientists Marine class. And I'm excited for some of the things that we're going to be talking about these next few weeks. I was looking over some of your homework and you guys did a wonderful job. That is awesome. And I hope you enjoy learning a little bit about whales. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to ask you guys in a little bit what was one of the most interesting things that you learned about whales, and you can put it in the chat box here. But before we do that, we're going to do a real quick thing here, just so that everybody understands some things, because I had a couple students message me this week and they were a little confused. So let's go over to our class. And let's see. Okay, whoops. Let's go over here. All right. So this is what our class looks like right now. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is just kind of show you that we already did week one. Last week was week two. Okay. And you had your week two homework. Okay. So this is where I had a couple students email me and they were a little confused because week three pops up on Monday. Okay. So on every Monday, the next week's work is going to pop up. So when you turn in your work, make sure you go to week two and turn your work in there. Now, sometimes I'll see it and I will be able to go back in and put it in the right, or put the grade in the right box for you. But you want to make sure that you put it in week two's box. Okay. And if you need to correct any work, you can correct it. If you correct your work, like, some people were missing some things on week one's assignment. And if you go back and correct it, you need to send me a note. Okay. Send me a note and say, Mrs. Philippek, I'm in the young science class and I corrected my week one's homework. If you correct it, I'll go in and regrade it for you. Okay. I haven't gone through everybody's grades here for week two, but if you did not do something, you might have a missing mark on your homework. Okay. And so as soon as you turn that in and I'm back in class, I can grade that. Now, usually, okay, so you've already seen, and I'm going to just kind of tell you this. I usually just grade work. um, I have graded week two's homework, but I haven't looked to see if somebody, I haven't graded all of week two's homework yet. Okay. So if you don't have a grade on there yet, it will be there by the end of today. Okay. Usually I grade it right before class, but my husband has a snow day. So we were over here talking. And so I see that I only graded a couple out of the class. So they will be graded by maybe even a few minutes after class is done today. Maybe even during break, I might get those all completed. Okay. And if you did not turn in the work, you make sure you turn it in. Now, I won't see that until I come in before class next week. Okay. Usually I grade papers right before class. So if you didn't turn something in, and you turn it in, let's say you turn in your homework tomorrow and you're wondering why I haven't graded the work, okay, on Friday, that's because I don't look at the class page. I'll look at the class page on Wednesday morning, and I'll grade it then. So all work will be graded on Wednesday mornings. Okay. So if you get a little confused as to why your paper is not, um, okay, make sure we use correct language here in class. Okay. If you can't hear something, um, let's see. Let me come back in here and come back to our class. Um, let me see. Um, Let me write this. Okay. So yes, if you log off and log back in, you should be able to hear. And if you still can't hear, check to make sure your volume is up. that's that's always a big one right there. Is sometimes the volume's not up on your computer, and everyone forgets that one. Okay, so let's get started today. Any prayer requests today? Any prayer requests? We'll put those down. And while we're doing that, I know a few of you are typing right now. While you're doing that, let me just remind you to use correct language. If you're not sure if something is proper, you can ask your parents and you can always ask me if this is proper language. And also when we have our break, use good language. Let's be kind. And so we'll make sure that we do that, or you might lose some of your privileges. All right. So Brycelyn, did I see your name? Oh, hold on a second. Ah, it's make sure I got you. Brycelyn, you have a competition this week. Okay. My okay. And Ethan, your mom tore her calf muscle. Ouch. Yeah. So you be a good help around the house. All right. Any others? Let's see. You have, okay. So Hannah said, Oliver, you're flying, and a rock climbing competition. Oh, wow. That's pretty awesome. Okay. And your ankle hurts really bad. Okay, so we will pray for that. And okay. All right. So let's start with a word of prayer here. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for today and for all that you do for us. Dear Lord, we ask that you just be with all the prayer requests that are mentioned here today. Be with let's see, Brycelyn and Hannah as they have a rock climbing competition this week. Help them to be safe and to have a lot of fun. And Lord, we ask that you would also be with Oliver, who will be flying. I pray that you would just help him to have a safe trip. And Lord, we also ask that you be with Ethan's mom and her ankle. I pray that, or her calf. I pray that you would help her to be able to heal quickly from that. And Lord, we also ask that you would be with, oh, hold on a second. Uh, with Grant's uncle or ankle that hurts. And I just pray that you would just heal his ankle. And Lord, I ask that you would just help each one of us as we go about our day, that we would be a blessing to all those that are around us, whether it's our siblings or our parents or grandparents, or even friends or even some strangers. Lord, help us to find a way to be a blessing to those people around us. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Okay. I know I was trying to look at the oh, you can hear now. Good job, Elliot. All right, good. I was trying to see some of the prayer requests, and every time I tried to scroll up, it was scrolling way too far up. So I was trying to get to right where we were supposed to be. All right, we're going to go play our game. And if you have not popped in, our pin number is all the way up at the top of the chat. And let me put it back down here for you. And put that down here so you can see our pin number is 358475. And we'll make sure that you can join in our game 358475, and we're going to do a review of some of the things that we were learning last week. And then when we come back, I'm going to have you write down some of the favorite things, one or two of the favorite things that you learned about whales this week. All right, so let's go on over there and let's see, let's go over to our game. There we go. It looks like some of you are here, so we'll wait for the rest of you to pop on in. And during break, we do have our whiteboard, but let's make sure that we are kind and that we are careful about some of the things that we do on the whiteboard, or we will lose the privileges there. So you want to make sure that you are careful about that. Okay, make sure that when you do log in, your name at least goes on there so that way we know who it is that is playing. Okay. All right. So let's get started. And if you haven't joined in, join in as soon as you can, and we'll see how you do today. Okay. So we have, I believe, 10 questions. No, 12. Okay. How much of our oceans have we explored? 5% in red, 25% in blue, 50% in yellow, or 75% in green? How much of our oceans have we explored? And the correct answer is 5%, 5%. So only just a small percentage of our oceans have we actually explored. Okay, let's see. Bryceland is in first place, and first place is in second place. I'm not sure who that is. And Grant is in third. Second, number two, all marine creatures can swim. Is that true in blue or is that false in red? And that is false. Not everything can swim. You think about crabs. Okay. So we see that everything is just a little bit different in the ocean. So we see Bryceland is still in first place. Grant, Sarah, Hannah, and Abrielle all moved on up. Okay, number three. Swimming marine creatures are called benthic in red or nekton in blue. Swimming marine creatures are called benthic in red or nekton in blue. And the correct answer is nekton. Good job. Over half of you got that one. All right, Grant moved up to first place. Hannah, Trevor, and first place moved on up. Okay, number four. Sharks would be blank. Benthic in red or nectonic in blue. And the correct answer is nectonic. Okay. So Hannah and first place and Jag all moved on up. All right, true or false? Some benthic creatures need to attach to a substrate. Is that true in blue or is that false in red? And that is true. Everyone got that one. Good job. Okay. All right. A few of you just popped in late. Good job. I'm glad you're here. Okay. Number six. Bivalves are marine creatures with how many shells? One in red, two in blue, five in yellow, or 10 in green. And the correct answer is 2. Okay, 2 shells. Bi means 2, like bicycle has 2 wheels. Okay. All right, let's see. First place moved up to first place. Okay, Trevor moved on up to fourth place. Number 7, true or false? Sponges are considered to be plants. Is that true in blue or is that false in red? And that is false. That is false. Okay, good job. All right. So Abrielle and T moved on up. Number 8. Crabs are blank. Vertebrates in red or invertebrates in blue. And they are invertebrates. Very good. Invertebrates. Okay. All right. So Abrielle, Bryceland, Hannah, and Neville moved on up. Okay. Number 9, true or false? Phytoplankton perform photosynthesis. Is that true in blue or is that false in red? Phytoplankton perform photosynthesis. And that is true. You guys all got that one. Great job. All right. Hannah moved up to first place. First place is in fourth. All right. Number 10, true or false? Zooplankton can live in fresh water and salt water. Is that true in blue or is that false in red? Okay, and that is true. Very good. So over half of you got that one right. All right, so Bryceland, Neville, and Trevor all moved on up, and Grant moved on up. Okay. Number 11, aquatic mammals need oxygen from the air in red or the water in blue. Aquatic mammals need oxygen from the air in red or the water in blue. And it's from the air, okay? Mammals breathe the air. They get oxygen from the air. So Hannah, Abrielle, in first place moved on up. Number 12, last question. True or false? Bioluminescent creatures are found only in the deepest waters. Is that true in blue or is that false in red? And the correct answer is false. Oh, only one person got that one. Okay, let's see how we did. All right, in third place, we have Hannah. Good job, Hannah. And in second place, we have T. I'm not sure who that is, but awesome. And in first place, we have Bryceland. Excellent job. All right. Wow. Bryceland, you got almost by 1,000 points. That is really good. Okay. Let's go back to our class and let's see. Um, Elliot, you said you can't do anything. Is that one? Okay. You couldn't do anything with the game. Is that right? I'm gonna make sure we got everyone doing the right thing here. So, Elliot, could you do it? You couldn't do anything with the game. Is that right? I want to make sure he's out. Sorry, Grant. Now, Elliot, are you still in class? Could you do it? Were you having trouble with the game? That's what I'm asking for Elliot. All right. Well, let's see if Elliot decides to type. There we go. Elliot. Yoo-hoo. Oh, I just want to make sure that you can't hear. Okay. Okay, he's having a hard time. Okay. So if you're ever having a hard time in class, not being able to hear or see, usually log off and log back in. And one of the things you can do is when you log in, it has you practice with your camera and and with your microphone to see if everything is working. Okay. Let me just. Okay. All right, let's see if that helps him. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about whales today. Okay, well, if he's on the phone, that could be a big problem right there. Okay. If you guys are having trouble, that usually is a problem. If you have any other tabs open, and if you're not near your main computer, your router, ask your parents where your router is. If you could be closer to that, sometimes that helps you to get a better signal in. Okay. Um, Oh, okay. Is that what you're looking at, Ethan or Elliot? Yeah, it looks like he's on his phone. Okay, that might be right. Okay, it's fine now. Okay. Good. You might have some problem on your device that you're using. So hopefully you can be here and enjoy class. All right, so we're going to talk about whales today. If you could, oh, you're on an iPad. That's probably, sometimes different devices might act differently. And it could be the device itself, or it could be that you're not close enough to the router. Okay, or there's too many other things um, on in your house with using the computer. Okay, that used to really bother us. Okay, so, whales have different accents. You know how other people from different countries, or even people from the South versus the North here in the United States, have different accents. Whales have different accents, and they actually sound. whales in the same pod kind of sound alike, kind of like people who live in the South have a Southern twang to them, and if you live in different parts, you might have an accent. And so all the whales in those pods have the same type of accent, and they can sing songs across the sea, and they can have distinct different songs that they sing to each other, and they can hear those songs up to about 10,000 miles away. We're going to look at that a little bit later on too. All right, who found out some interesting some interesting facts about whales? Let me see. Let's see. I saw somebody pop one on that orcas and dolphins or whales. Okay. Orcas are whales. Good. Um, all right. Let's see. Let's see if you guys have some other fun facts that you learned. Sometimes it's fun to see some of the different things that everybody learned because we all look at different places. That orcas are actually dolphins. Okay, so yes, yeah, because that's kind of interesting, isn't it? When you think about some of the different animals that you think is a whale or a dolphin or a porpoise or a manatee, and they're related in different ways. Yes, that's cool, isn't it? Narwhals are called a blessing when you got a whole group of them. Okay. Yeah, they are classified as dolphins. Your humpback whales have 2 blowholes? Okay, pretty cool. I don't think I remember that one. Let's see. We'll see if anybody else has something that they wanna type in here. I see a few of you typing. Oh, yeah, so blue whale's heart is the size of, like, a small car, and a human being could actually stand up inside their heart. Isn't that amazing? They're, like, 6 feet. That is pretty amazing. I know, that is so cool, isn't it? You wouldn't think that an animal's heart would be that big. Uh, a dwarf sperm whale, the smallest whale, okay. Yes, sperm whales, sleep vertically in the water. All right, that's awesome. You guys learned quite a lot there. That is wonderful. Okay, we're going to learn a few more things today, and maybe some of them that you know of, which is pretty so neat. So, hold on one second. Let me just cough. I'm going to turn my mic. Okay, hopefully my throat is clear. Okay, the sperm whale has the largest brain of any animal. That is really neat, isn't it? They are huge. When you see them, they are just amazingly huge animals, which is pretty cool. When you think about how big these animals are. Now, last week when we were talking about some of the different animals, some of you wrote uh, that when you saw a whale that you named it a cetacean, and a cetacean is the name of its order, not the genus and species, but I let everyone pass on that one. But when we take a look at cetacean is the order. When we're talking about taxonomy, we're talking about the kingdom, family, order, family, genus, species, or phylum, and I forgot the phylum in there. So we're talking about its order. So this is a whole group of different animals. So you can see right here, we have really huge whales, we have small whales, we have dolphins and porpoises. And look at the size of the elephant up here. Can you see the elephant right here? Oh, let me grab my tool here. Oh, let me turn that off there. Oh, here we go. Right here. This is an elephant, and look at the size next to some of these animals. Yes, narwhals, and we talk about all different kinds of different types of like walruses, and all these different types of animals. There's about 90 species of them all total, and they come from the word cetacean comes from the Latin and the Greek words cetus and ketos, and those mean sea monster because they were so large that people, when they were in boats, thought they were some sort of sea monster. Okay. Yeah. He does, doesn't he? Look at the size of them. They're just amazing when you look at them. How many of you ever seen a whale in real life? Has anyone actually seen a whale in real life? Okay, awesome. Hannah, all right. Sarah, wonderful. Grant, okay. Now, some of you have probably seen them at maybe like an aquarium. How many have ever seen one in the wild? Like, maybe you were out boating. All right, Sarah and Grant. Wow. And if they get close up to your boat, you really see how huge they are. They are amazing. You went to Alaska and saw one. You've touched a dolphin. Aren't they neat? I think they are so cool, aren't they? So yes, I was actually swimming last year in Pensacola, Florida, so the Gulf of Mexico, and this dolphin came swimming. My daughter and I were swimming in the water, and this dolphin came really close to us with a baby, and it was just so cool to be able to see that. You saw a dolphin show in Japan. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Who was feeding lemon sharks? Let me see. Grant. All right. So how cool is that? Wow. You guys have done some really cool things with animals, especially your marine animals. That is really neat. I'm hoping to go diving here in the next couple weeks. So I'm just thinking that'll be really cool. I'm kind of looking forward to that. All right, so here is a killer whale, okay, and they're called killer whales. We're going to talk about this because of how ferocious they are. They are pretty mean when you take a look at, and they eat all sorts of things, and so they're very beautiful when you take a look at them, but they also will eat lots of different things in the ocean, and so a lot of other animals know how to take care of themselves. There was actually a story out a few weeks ago where these blue whales were letting little seals sit on top of their head as they were lobtailing in the water, putting their heads out of water, or not lobtailing, but sky hopping. Well, look at that here. And they were letting them sit on their heads so they were protected against the killer whales, because killer whales will eat them. So the blue whales were actually protecting them. And that is really kind of cool when you think of other animals protecting each other like that. But when we look at them, this blue whale is a cetacean, or the orca whale is order cetacean. And this also has our dolphins and porpoises, and they are different. We're going to look at those in here a little while. But whales are warm blooded. Okay. They are aquatic mammals. So they're warm blooded. Their blubber keeps them warm. So they've got thick layers of fat that keep them warm. And they breathe air. And we're going to take a look at how they do that. So we can see that they are mammals, and we're going to take a look at a couple other things that they do too. So whales, specifically marine animals, are in the group cetaceans, like we said, and they are warm blooded. Like we talked about, their blubber keeps them nice and warm. They breathe air and they give birth to live young. Some animals do not give birth to live young. They lay eggs, or they will either sit on their eggs, or they will lay them in groups called a hatch. And so we also see that they nurse their young, they feed their young milk. And so they have all the characteristics of mammals. They even have hair on them. So they really are just very interesting animals when we take a look at them. So whales are divided into two different groups. There are baleen whales. Baleen whales, and this is an orca. This orca is a not a baleen whale. Baleen whales are mysticytes, and they filter feed. And I'm going to show you how they feed themselves. And then there's toothed whales. They're called odontocytes, and they use their teeth to capture prey. So you can take a look at this orca and you can see that he has teeth. His teeth are spread apart nice and evenly all the way across. Don't they look nice and even? They look really good there, when you talk about your teeth, it looks like he almost had braces. They're nice and evenly spaced. But toothed whales, like our dolphins and our killer whales, they and sperm whales, they have teeth. And so they will go around and they will catch their prey. Okay. So they will grab their prey, but they don't chew their food. They'll use their teeth to grab their food and then they just swallow it. Okay. So they don't chew their food like you do. Okay. Baleen whales and our humpback whales and blue whales, and they have, excuse me, baleen plates. They have plates instead of teeth, and they filter feed. So take a look at what their teeth look like. They have these plates, and if you take a look, notice how the plates kind of go like a filter. Okay, like if you have a filter in your house for your heater, they have these little filters, and then the top of it is kind of like a brush, kind of like a broom. Look at this one right here. It almost looks like a big broom. It looks like lots of string hanging down, and that's kind of what it is. And what happens is that as they're eating, they're able to suck in a bunch of water and they filter it through, and they're able to catch all of the fish or the small plankton or krill in their teeth, and that is able to stay in, and then they're able to filter the water out. So they take a deep gulp of water and kind of push the water out, and the all the food stays in on the back side of their teeth, like on the back side, and the water filters back out. And so they're able to filter feed. So it looks almost like a big brush. Okay. It looks like a toothbrush that's kind of gone a little wonky, like have you ever used your toothbrush so much that the tooth bristles are going every which way? That's kind of what their teeth are like, so their teeth are really interesting. So yeah, we don't really want to do that with our toothbrush. So when we talked about taxonomy before, we talked about the kingdom is the five main groups of organisms that are in our world. And then we have our phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And so when we take a look at order, this is where we have our cetaceans. Okay, so our cetaceans are over here. So when we look at the killer whale, it's in kingdom Animalia. Animals are all of our larger living organisms, living animals, okay? And that would include insects and reptiles and different things like that. It's phylum Chordata. So Chordata means it has a backbone, so it's a vertebrate. Class Mammalia, so these are mammals. And its order is Cetacea. Its family is Delphinidae. Its genus is Orcanus. And its species is Orca. So a killer whale is Orcanus orca. That's its genus and species. So we see that the cetacean right there is actually the order. Okay, so that's the order, but that's taxonomy. That's where we name everything and we put it into different groups depending on what it's like. So there are five groups, five kingdoms. The domain up at the top is the type of cell that each organism is made out of. And there are three types of cells. Okay. So as you get further into science, we talk about the types of cells. And then the kingdoms, there are five kingdoms. There's plantae, which are plants. We've got kingdom Animalia, which are all your animals and birds and insects, anything like that. Okay. Then we have two of our microscopic organisms. We've got Monera and Protista. Those are one-celled organisms. And the last one is fungi, which is different types of fungus. All right. And so there's all different types of fungus around. Okay. So a tail of a whale is called its fluke. Okay, so look at this picture. We have a right fluke and a left fluke. So here see, here's the left fluke over here, and here's the right fluke. Okay, but the whole thing is called the fluke. And we can see that this is called the trailing edge right here. And this is the notch where it comes in a little bit. And over here on the tail, we can see that the trailing edge and the little markings on the tail are very unique to each and every whale. It's kind of like, sometimes we can tell whales apart based on the different markings that are on them, but especially on their tail. Okay, their tails are very unique to each one. Okay, so we talk about different scientists, and they will say how they follow a certain whale around. Sometimes they put monitors on them, but sometimes what they do is they check to see where these whales are, and then they look at their tail to see who's who, because they have certain marks on them, and the tail, the trailing edge there, can be a little bit different on each and every one of them. And so it will, each one of them has their own unique marking. Like each of you have your own specific nose or lips or eyes, each one of you is a little bit different. And so their tails are going to be a little bit different, that just kind of make them them, make them that, easy to identify. So we see that the fluke is the entire tail, but we have two lobes, one on the right and one on the left. And so we can we refer to each side a little bit differently. Now, whales and like dolphins and sperm whales, and belugas use echolocation just like a bat does. Okay. They use that sound to find things in their environment. So it helps them to kind of see, because sometimes they're in really dark water, but that echolocation bounces back and it can tell them if there's a boat there, or if there's a big cliff or some rocks, or there are fish there. They can tell them where there's different objects around them. And so they can kind of see like all around them by using that echolocation. It helps them to figure out where everything is. And the sound, how it comes back to them, tells them what something is. So a fish sound, if it bounces off a fish and that sound comes back, it's going to make a different sound than if it's hitting a rock and coming back to them. So yeah, kind of like Aquaman hearing. Yeah. They really are amazing on their ability to be able to hear things. So that sound kind of bounces back. So they can make different high pitched sounds. They make little clicking sounds, and they make little whistles. And all those sounds bounce back and give them a location of how far something is and kind of what that object is. Just like bats. If you ever seen bats flying around at night, they will use a high pitched squeal to kind of find different things. They can tell the difference between a building and a mosquito, so they can eat the bugs, and they can find where fruits are, and they can find where the trees are, and they can find where their home is. And so they use that instead of their eyesight. So they use that sound or that echolocation to find their way around. And that's kind of what these do, okay, which is really cool. So now baleen whales are they're kind of like where we when we talk about like humpback whales and fin whales, they can make loud sounds, and they can make these really low pitch sounds, really deep noises. Do you ever hear like something on the radio where it's like a really, really deep, deep sound, just really, really deep? And that sound, because it's so deep, can travel long distances, sometimes up to 10,000 miles. So they sing these songs to each other, and these songs can travel in the water thousands of miles away across the ocean, and they can talk to each other, which is so neat. We can't travel, our voices don't travel that far. But when you study science and you study how sounds actually move faster in solids than in liquids, and they travel faster in and further in liquids than they do in gases. So sound actually travels further in water, in a liquid, than it does in the air. So this is why their songs and their vocalizations can travel such long distances. And because whales have such uh, different sound. They have songs. You could actually look up whale songs and you could hear the types of songs that whales make. And they talk to each other through those songs. And some of them are to, reach out to other groups. Sometimes they're sad songs because another whale has died, but they give each other all sorts of information. And that sound, that song travels such huge distances, which is really amazing that they can do that. Now, a whale's blowhole is up on the top of their head. Okay. And this helps them to be able to breathe. That's called a breathing apparatus. And it's located all the way on the top of their head. And it's kind of like their nose. Okay. Like a nostril. Okay. You can see that this one has like like two nose holes right there, but it's on top of their head. And when they go underwater, they actually close it up so no water goes inside. You've probably been swimming or where you opened your mouth or your nose, and you let some water in, and it starts to choke you a little bit. Okay, well, that's the same thing that can happen to aquatic mammals. They can drown. They can actually drown in the water, but that's where their life is. So they have to know how to breathe the right way. So when they exhale, they're actually their breath can actually be visible. Okay, so when they exhale, okay, they breathe out. Okay, sometimes you see water coming out of their spout. A lot of times, what it is gas. Okay, now when you exhale. Okay, I'm going to use my glasses here as an example. When I exhale, I'm going to, like in the wintertime, you can see your breath because there's moisture in your breath. Okay, when I exhale on my glasses, you see my glasses fog up. Okay. And the reason they fog up is because I am releasing excess water from my body with my breath. Okay. And the same thing with a whale. And as it goes up, because it's really warm inside of a whale, just like it's warm inside your body, that gas as it goes up sometimes looks like a big spout. Okay. It's not really, they're not really spouting out water, but they're breathing out. And it's kind of like your breath in the wintertime when you breathe out and you see a cloud of air come out. Okay. Some of you live where it's warm and you don't get to see that, but some of us live where it's cold and you get to see your breath. Okay. But their breath can be seen because their bodies are so warm and they've got a lot of moisture. So when they exhale, it looks like a big cloud of water. Okay. But basically, it is just gas. It's water in a gas form. So that's kind of what comes out of their spout. They're really not spouting out water, squirting water out of their nose. But it's just their breath is warm and it's warmer than the air. So sometimes we can see it, just like in the wintertime, you can see your breath. So when we take a look at how a whale looks inside, here would be where its mouth is. And this is its digestive tract. And it goes all the way down here. And down here, we have these big lungs. Okay. And if you take a look here, this is where the lungs are. And the lungs go all the way up to the blowhole. Okay, so they will close up. So there will be like a valve there that closes up, and there'll be a valve here that closes up. So there's two valves that actually close up to protect it from, accidentally breathing in water. Okay, so it closes its nose holes a couple times, one above and one down a little bit lower, so it doesn't get water inside of its lungs. Because water inside of its lungs, if you get water in your lungs, you're coughing and hacking and you can't breathe. And the same thing can happen to them. So they have to be able to breathe the air. Okay. Now, sometimes whales actually beach themselves. That means they come up to the beach. And maybe you've seen this on the news before. And we don't always know why. Scientists are still trying to figure out why whales would come up to the shore and beach themselves. And sometimes it's because there's a sickness in, maybe one or more of the members of their pod, and so they get themselves close to the shore and let the waves just kind of roll themselves up there. Sometimes it's because another pod member maybe dies and comes up to shore, and they know that they make these really sad songs. So sometimes, especially in areas where there are a lot of whales, if they see a lot that have been beached, people will try to push them back into the water again. But they think that just because one of the pod members may be sick or dying, that they all kind of do that. So it's really kind of sad. Sometimes they think it could be navigational errors, like they didn't know which way they were going and got lost. But they're not quite sure about that because they're still trying to figure some of that out. But a lot of times we have found another one of the pod members that's been sick or that was already dead, and they think that it's just because of how sad they are, and they all go forward with them and follow them to the shore. So that is kind of sad, isn't it? All right, we're going to take a break right here. Okay, and all right, so we're going to talk about the blue whale. Sometimes when the blue whale comes up out of the water, okay, this is called breaching, okay, not beaching, but this has an R in it, so breaching. And this is when the whale is going to come out of the water, so almost its entire body comes completely out of the water. Okay. And a lot of times when they come down, they're going to cause a big splash and even a wave, because it's a huge animal coming out of the water. So this is when it's called breaching. Now, sometimes we see the whales will come up and they'll just stick their heads out of the water, and they'll just kind of be vertical in the water, meaning straight up and down. And they'll kind of like bob up and down in the water. And that's called spy hopping, because they're kind of watching what's going on in the world around them. A lot of times it's just because they're curious about what's going on. Some of the whales actually can sleep like this, sleeping vertically in the water. But a lot of times they do it just to see what's going on in the world around them. They look at boats, they look at other animals, they look at the birds, they're just curious animals. So they are very interesting. Now, sometimes when they come up, they'll take their tail out of the water and they'll slap it down really hard on the water. And when they do that, their fluke is going to make a huge slapping sound, and it'll splash water on there. And when it slams down, it actually makes a loud noise, but the noise can be heard underwater also. This is called lobtailing. And we're not quite sure why a lot of the whales do this, but they think that some of it is done to attract mates, or sometimes to show that they are like a stronger animal. Okay, so that they're more in control. So it kind of, letting everybody know that, they're the boss. So that's kind of what that we're not quite sure, but that's kind of what they're figuring out, that they think that that's what it means. So a lot of whales are going to be migratory, meaning they are going to migrate from one area to another. So in the winter time, they're going to migrate where? Where do you think they're going to migrate in the winter time?
Tropical places.
Where do you think that they're going to migrate in the winter time?
Tropical places.
I know, somewhere hot.
Antarctica. Tropical places.
See a couple of you trying to chat here and seeing what comes up.
Why?
Here.
Or am I guessing? No.
Anybody have an idea?
Near the equator?
I see some of you typing.
California, Mexico.
There we go. Sorry, I didn't see it. Okay. Tropical places, warmer waters near the equator. Good. They're going to travel south, and if they're in the northern hemisphere, they're going to travel south. If they're in the southern hemisphere, they're going to travel north toward the equator. So yes, they're going to try to get into warmer waters. In the summertime, though, this is where they travel to colder weather. So they will travel to areas where, like up to the Arctic or the Antarctic. So to the North Pole or the South Pole. So they are able to go to colder waters during that time. And a lot of times they're going to just kind of follow the fish. okay, because they like to eat especially krill, which are really small fish. And so they follow the where the a lot of times the coastal lines where a lot of these smaller fish live. In certain times they're going to, like in the winter, they're going to have their birthing centers, and they're going to birth their babies closer to the shoreline in shallow waters so they'll keep them safe. But in the summer, they go up towards the like the North Pole or the South Pole. And then in the winters, they go more towards the equator. So good job. So some species, like the killer whales or the orcas, they they're always attacking anything that's smaller than them. So they like to protect their youngs. A lot of whales like to protect their young from the orcas. So a lot of times they will go to special areas to birth to their babies or their calves. They call it calving. Okay. So, okay, I don't know what anyone's doing. See everybody telling Tatum to stop or Ethan to stop. I'm not sure what you're doing, but if you could focus in on class, please. If you've got your camera on and you're not focusing on class, then turn your camera off. Okay. All right. So whales are going to try to go to shallow waters to birth their calves, and this is where they're going to put them in an area where the like the orcas can't get to them and harm them. So they go to shallow waters, and a lot of times those waters are going to be a little bit warmer than going out to the deep ocean. Okay. Deep ocean is going to get colder. Closer to the shore, it's going to be a little bit warmer. So they have them in warmer areas and in a safer area. Now, this is a gray whale. This is one of the whales that has the longest migration route, and sometimes they're going to travel thousands of miles to the from the Arctic, from like California, and they're going to go to really far areas. So they travel further than any of the other whales. And there's an area that or this is one type of whale that they really study, and they're studied by the Marine Mammal Center. So that's one of the areas that studies these whales. Now, a lot of people really love the beluga whale. They're really sweet. They're just one of the most curious little whales. And they've been known to just go up to boats and just kind of try to communicate with the people by playing games or being silly, and they're just a lot of fun. Now, they have a large forehead, and that's called their melon. And the melon is filled with oil, and that oil allows the sounds to come back and forth. So when they're using echolocation, it allows them to be able to hear things really well. Okay. Their skull bone is actually let me kind of draw this for you. um, their skull bone is kind of like this shape, like a dish shape. Okay. And so sound is going to travel through that oil to this dish shape right here, and it's going to vibrate. And this is what gives that information back to the whale and allows them to go through that echolocation. Okay. So it allows them to be able to hear really well. And let's see. Make sure that we're focusing here on class. So whales and dolphins, like we talked about, have really good hearing and can hear really far. Not quite as far as some of the whales that we talked about that can sing songs up to 10,000 miles, but they can hear up to 1,000 miles away. That is really quite a distance. When you think about that, that is quite the distance. Now, I live in Michigan. That would be going from the northern part of our country down to the southern part of our country, like going from Michigan all the way down to Florida. So that's a long distance. Can you imagine hearing that far? Now, I'm sure, maybe you've been outside and outdoors riding your bike or playing basketball or something, and your mom calls you in for dinner, and she's calling you, and she could probably scream really loud, because I know as a mom I could scream pretty loud, but sometimes my kids couldn't hear me because of where they were. But when your mom screams for you, it's time to come in. Okay. And sometimes you can hear her voice and sometimes you can't, right? But can you imagine hearing something 1,000 miles away? That is just amazing. But they're able to hear that far because of their melon. Okay, that oil filled sac in their heads. Okay, and so that's what allows them to hear really well through that echolocation. So here we have a baby dolphin. Oh, isn't that just precious? Look at how sweet that is. They share a lot of characteristics with our mammals because they have air, that are lungs that breathe air just like we do, and they have live birth, but they also have blubber or fat in them in their bodies. They've got a thick layer of fat in their bodies they call blubber. That helps keep them warm no matter what the temperature of the water. And they also produce milk to feed their young. So they really are just precious little things. They just are just amazing. Yeah, they do kind of feel kind of rubbery, kind of like feeling something rubbery. That's kind of what it would feel like, but they are just precious. So dolphins actually have the ability to turn half their brain off when they fall asleep. So they can be half their brain can be asleep and the other half can be awake. And they could actually sleep. So half their brain is kind of paying attention to what's going on while the other half of their brain is actually sleeping. And they can actually rest just very motionless on top of the water. And they can breathe just regularly like you breathe at night, but they're just going to swim really slow right on the top of the surface. And they'll be half asleep, but the other half of their brain is kind of awake so they can actually pay attention if danger comes. So they wake up very easily. Isn't that amazing that they can do that? Wouldn't it be kind of cool if you could do something like that? Unfortunately, we can't. We don't have the ability to do that. But dolphins are always, used in a lot of shows. When you go to aquariums, they are incredible animals because they can learn so much. They're very intelligent. They are just funny little creatures because they love to entertain. You'll see them even in the wild do things to be entertaining, and so they use them in a lot of like aquarium type shows. They'll throw balls and they'll catch things and they'll go diving for different things and they'll jump in the air and twirl around because they love to do stuff like that. And they're easily trained. If you give them a fish, they'll do just about anything. In fact, they have been training these dolphins in certain areas to bring back trash to certain areas. And if they bring back trash, they will get a fish. So they've actually learned, okay, this is funny, is they learned how to take some trash and break it up into smaller pieces so they have more trash to bring back and to get more fish because they really are smart. They are just a really intelligent animal and they're just fun to watch. They're just so silly, and just to watch them in the water, they're so graceful. But dolphins are really social animals. They are considered probably like one of the second most intelligent animals on earth next to humans. And so they've shown the ability to be able to figure things out and problem solve and to be able to think of other animals, and they're very social. So they're just kind of a really interesting animal. Now they've been observed to be able to use tools in the water. So sometimes if they're digging for food, they will take a sponge and they will keep it in their mouth so that way when they're poking around in the ground, they won't hurt their nose. So they'll use different planning activities and be able to reason through and realize that when I poke my nose in the dirt, it's going to hurt. So if I put a sponge on my nose, it doesn't hurt. So they actually are very interesting little creatures because they can figure things out really well. Now, can you imagine if you were in your living room and something walked by your window? You'd be kind of curious as to see, what is there? Like if you're at home and a big truck goes by, sometimes you're looking out. My dogs love to look out the window and they get real excited when they see a school bus or when they see tractors, because we live in farming country. They love to watch the tractors. And so they get real excited when they see them. But can you imagine, being in an aquarium and you've got a very curious animal like a dolphin, and somebody walks by, they want to take a look and they want to see, what's going on. So they're really fun to have in aquariums because they really want to pay attention to what's going on and they want to watch all the people. So, they're really kind of interesting creatures that way. Now, there are actually pink dolphins. Now, look at this dolphin. Isn't it she's just beautiful, just that pretty pink color. Now, these are found in the Amazon River, and they're called a pink river dolphin or a bodo. And it's actually an albino bottlenose dolphin. So, any animal that's albino means that it doesn't have any pigment in their skin. So what happens is their eyes are pink. If you've ever seen animals that are albino, they're completely white and they sometimes have pink eyes, and that's because they have no pigment. And because of that, they tend to burn easily. So their skin actually gets like pink, like a sunburn. And so that's why they're pink dolphins, is because of that lack of melanin in their skin will allow them to burn very easily. So that's kind of why they're called pink river dolphins. Now, dolphins and porpoises are sometimes confused with each other. They're very similar to each other, but dolphins tend to have a more pointed nose, where porpoises have kind of like a rounded nose, and they have more of a whale type look on their face. So we see that they have a different type of a fin, and they have different types of teeth also. So this is what makes them just a little bit different. So we're going to take a look at the differences here. When you take a look at dolphins are more curious and they're very smart and they like to be around people. They really like to have people laugh at them, and they sometimes even make a sound like they're laughing. But porpoises tend to be really shy. They're not as social. They tend to be in smaller groups and they stay closer to the shore than out in sea. So they also, as far as their bodies look, they look a little bit smaller than a porpoise or dolphin, and so they tend to live in coastal areas, so closer to the shore, and sometimes they live in the rivers. And so you can see that they can live in different types of habitats. So here you can see the difference between them. Look right here. You can see their nose is one. Here we see a dolphin has a more pronounced beak, okay, where a porpoise is kind of rounded. And we can see the front fins are going to be very small compared to a porpoise's, which are going to be a little bit larger and more pointed. And its fin on top of its back, a dolphin is going to have kind of like a shark fin, where you see it's kind of curved here, where we see a porpoise fin is going to just kind of go up in more of a triangle. So those are some of the differences that we see with these animals. We see a big difference there. Okay. Yeah, they do look happier, don't they? Because they have a little smile on their face. It's really kind of cute. So these are the orcas. These are called killer whales, and that's because sailors actually would see them hunting and killing other large whales. So this is what why they named them killer whales. They are very beautiful, though. When you see a pod of them, they are just beautiful to look at. But they do eat they are not vegetarians. They are not herbivores. They are carnivores, so they eat a lot of meat, and so they go after whatever is swimming. Okay, yeah, so they can be. We sometimes look at them as being mean, but they're just eating. So a killer whale is known as the orca, and it's the top ocean predator. You would think that a shark would be, but it's actually the killer whale. And they are actually more related to a dolphin than a whale. And we take a look at a lot of different things to see why animals are related to certain animals more so. And it can be their bone structure, it can be the types of fins that they have, the fluke that they have, the type of their genome when we take a look at their DNA. So we can see lots of different things that are a little bit different about them. All right, this is a beluga, and it's sometimes known as a sea canary because of some of the sounds that it can make. Like a canary bird actually makes lots of beautiful sounds, and so does a beluga whale. And you can see that they have a very large melon on their head. Okay, that's a very big forehead, and remember, it's oil filled, and they have that curved bone in their head so they can hear the different sounds. Now, these are also very playful little animals. Okay, they really like to play. They've been known to be up near the shore, especially in areas like in California, and they will come up to the shore and they will go up to boats and they will, try to be a little curious and try to figure out what the humans are doing. So they really are interesting little creatures. Now, belugas are called the canaries of the sea because of the different sounds that they make. They make all different kinds of whistling sounds, some different squeals. Sometimes they like make a moo like a cow. They can chirp like a bird, and they can make little clicks. And remember, all those different sounds can bounce back with their echolocation and allow them to hear different things, like to kind of like hear their surroundings and kind of to be able to see their surroundings. And so it allows them to be able to kind of navigate the waters a little bit better, to know where things are so they don't bump into them, but also to know where their food is. And they also, even though they use that echolocation to kind of see their surroundings, they actually have pretty good eyesight too. So they can actually see in and out of the water really well. And so they're not like, they can't see very well like a bat can't see, so they use echolocation. They can still see, but they use that echolocation to see further in the distance and to be able to find different things around them, and even to see like in deeper water. Okay. Yeah, they do have a big mouth, don't they? They are kind of neat. But look at the size of them next to like a human. You can see that they are a little bit bigger, like twice the size as a normal human being. They're about 13 feet. Normal human might be around 6 feet. Okay. So we can see that they are a little bit like almost twice as big, or a little bit more than twice as big as a human. But they're, because of their shape of their melon and the shape of their mouth, they almost look really friendly, don't they? They do have teeth and they do eat meat, okay, but they are a very friendly type of whale, and they are just really amazing to see. Now, sometimes beluga whales will shed their outer skin, kind of like they're in the summertime. They go through a molting period, so their outer layer of skin will actually come off like a snake skin. And when it does, they kind of get a different look to them, so they kind of get a darker color to them. You can see this little guy right here. See how right down here by its mouth, you can see how the skin is kind of bubbled up a little bit around here and right around its head. It's getting ready to actually shed, so the skin is peeling away. And so underneath it will be this pretty white color again. And so it's really kind of neat that they can do some of these different things. Now, this is a narwhal. Now, narwhals are kind of one of the strangest creatures that there are, because it has a long tooth that comes out like a big tusk. It's actually, that tusk is not like a sword or anything. It's actually a tooth that grows from its head. They actually have two teeth. One comes out of its head and keeps growing, and the other one is inside of its mouth. And so that's kind of what we see there. So they use that to kind of protect themselves. But they're not like sword fighters, when you might see a little cartoon and there's like sword fighting. They don't do that, but it actually helps them to break through the ice. That's mostly what it's used for, to help them break through the ice. But can you imagine trying to move around and having that big long tusk coming out of your forehead? That would be kind of hard to be able to be able to move. But you can see here, that they can break right through the ice, and that helps them to be able to get around and helps them to be able to breathe, because remember, they breathe the air. Okay, so sometimes if they're in cold waters, which they mostly live in colder waters, it helps them to break through. Now, newborns are kind of like a blue-gray color, and the juveniles, which are the younger ones, let's go back over here, are more of this darker color right here. Okay, when they're an adult, they're kind of grayish color with just kind of like a little bit of spotting on them. And then the really old narwhals are really completely white. So the really old narwhals are completely white. So depending on the age, we're going to get different colors. So they kind of change colors as they get a little bit older. And so they change a little bit there. So these are some of the narwhals here in the ocean. They are one of 3 whales that live in the Arctic waters, and they live in the Arctic waters almost all winter long. Okay, so they really have been adapted to living in cold water. And like we said before, the tusk is actually a really long tooth, and it can get broken. Okay, just like you can break your teeth, it would take something really strong to break it, but it can get broken. So we can see that they can be a little, that could cause some damage to them right there. That would hurt if you had a big broken tooth like that. All right, these are sperm whales, and this is the largest of the toothed whales. And they've been found all over the world. So these are found globally. And they are found usually in the deep ocean. They like to be really deep in the ocean. They do like it in the colder waters, but they have been found near the equator also. So they can travel all over. Now, a lot of times we can tell the difference between one by looking at some of the markings on it. Like right here, we can see different spots on its face. But look at the markings here on the side. It probably had a run-in with something. It looks like maybe it could run into maybe the side of a cliff and gotten scratched up here. Sometimes you see sucker marks on them from giant octopus or squid, and they'll leave a big mark on them. And you can see different marks here. It could be from fights. It could be from bumping into things. And so we can sometimes tell the difference between certain whales by the markings on them. Okay, this is a sperm whale, and look at the size of it next to like a human being and an elephant. You can see that these are really huge. Sometimes they get up to be about 80 feet long, and they have actually there's been a lot of threats to them, a lot of times because they get into areas where there's a lot of ships. Sometimes they get tangled up in fishing noises, and sometimes noise pollution actually kills them. Okay, and actually pollution in the water. Okay, and that's a big problem. Pollution in the water can do a lot of damage to animals because sometimes they can swallow that garbage and it can actually kill them. And when we put wind towers in the water and oil rigs in the water, they emit a sound in the water, because you think of an oil rig can get really loud and noisy, but the drilling can make such a loud sound that it can actually hurt them. it can hurt them really, horribly. And so they'll try to stay as far away from them as possible. So they're finding that a lot of animals are very sensitive to some of the things that we put in the water. And so we see that can be a problem. Look right here. Okay, this is a baleen whale. You can see its teeth right here. And sometimes people will find a baleen plate. Okay, one of the teeth plates, and it's would be they'll call it a whalebone. Okay, and each plate is very long, and it has those flexible hairs, kind of like a big broom, like those big huge brooms that you would use to clean out a huge room. Okay, it's kind of like that. Okay, now when we talk about those teeth, they're made out of the same material as your hair and your fingernails are made out of. It's a protein called keratin. And there's hundreds of plates all lined up around each other. And they have those hairs inside there, which kind of trap things in. So that fringe allows for them to take a big gulp of water and to kind of push it through their mouth, and it goes through that filter and keeps the food in their mouth. Now, they like to eat lots of a special type of fish. Does anyone know what kind of fish they really love to eat? What kind of fish do whales really love to eat? One of the biggest mammals on the entire earth. Yeah, and they eat something called krill. Okay, so close there. And krill are one of the tiniest fish there are. I'm going to show you some here in just a minute. But blue whales are the largest whales. And you can see that he's got a lot of folds in his skin underneath his neck right there. And that will open up to like a huge sac. Okay, so they can take in a huge gulp of water, and they will, filter that out, and they can keep the krill in their mouth. And they've been known to live for like 80 to 90 years. Sailors will write down which whales they've seen and the markings on them. And we've been able to see these same whales dozens of years later and know that it's the same whale because of the markings that are on them. Now, these are krill. Krill are kind of like tiny little shrimp-like fish. Okay, they're really tiny. Look at that, a whole handful in your hand, and they will actually breed like crazy. And so we can see these all in different clusters in the ocean all over the place. And sometimes the water might even look pink because there's so many krill in the water. And this is the whale's favorite food. So they will come in and they will just scoop up mouthfuls of them all of the time and eat like hundreds of pounds of them all at once. So they eat these tiny, tiny little fish. So the largest mammals on Earth eat these tiny, tiny little fish. Isn't that amazing when you think about that? So here we see the blue whale, and take a look right here. See how he puffed up his lower mouth here underneath his chin, and you can see where those folds have kind of opened up and just made this big round area. And you can see he's got a lot of water in his mouth, and you can see how he's letting some of it out. Okay, and he's got a big smile on his face, doesn't he? Now, this one right here is one of the oldest blue whales that we know of. Okay, and we know that because of the markings on him. And he's about 110 years old right now. And that's that's pretty old. Now, take a look right here. Some of these whales, we can see the different markings on them. But right here, these are actually another type of animal that's living on them. Does anyone know what those are? Yeah, kind of like rice to them. Yes. Barnacles. Yes. Sometimes the barnacles will actually stick to them and will live off of them. And so we can see that, they'll kind of attach themselves to them. And gray whales are known to be one of the friendliest whales that there are. And they will often just go up to boats and just kind of watch. So a lot of different places, like up in Maine and California and Washington, up in Canada and in Alaska, different places like that, they will have whale watching expeditions where you can go watch whales as they're swimming. And those whales are really curious. So they'll come up to the boat as close as they can and kind of, want to see what's going on. So it's kind of neat. That's how you can watch some of those whales. Now, gray whales were sometimes actually called devilfish because of how they reacted when they got harpooned. A long time ago, the way a lot of people would be able to gather their food, one way is to catch a whale. And if they harpooned a whale, they would take a large spear and they would kill the whale. They would use every part of the whale. They would use the blubber for lighting lamps. They would use the meat for their food. They would use the different bones for different projects. They would use every part of that. And so the whaling boats, sometimes they would harpoon a gray whale and they would see it thrash around a lot, and so they call them devilfish because of how aggressive they would get, and they would try to fight back. This is a humpback whale. And humpback whales sometimes will swim with huge populations of whales, and they will usually travel like up to 5,000 miles in a trip. And that's a long way to go to a different feeding ground or to give birth to their calves. So they would go travel really far distances. Okay, there are about 90 different species of whales. So we definitely didn't talk about all the different types of whales there are, but this is order cetacean. And so this is where we talk about all the different types of whales. There are 15 types of baleen whales, the ones that have the filter feeders, and then 76 species of toothed whales that have teeth. Okay. And here we see that in the 1990s, we saw that in the cold waters, we can see that there were some different types of whales that they were around 200 years old or more. And so some of them that were actually found with spearheads actually still embedded in their skin. And some of their eyes had actually gotten like cataracts over them because they were so old. So that's how old some of those whales can be. Now, we can see that there was a time where people hunted whales so much that their numbers went down quite a bit. Now today, they're not hunted as much as they used to be. In fact, there's a lot of different laws against hunting whales. So their numbers are coming back up again. Now, the rarest whale species is known as the spade-toothed whale. And it's so rare that we've never seen them in the water, but the only few that we've seen have actually washed up to shore. They beached themselves. So that's how rare they are. We've never actually seen them in the water. Okay, so hopefully you learned something really neat about some of the whales. I enjoy talking about some of them. They're so cool. But this week we're going to talk about pinnipeds. And so you're going to write down what a pinniped is and if you've ever seen one. And then tell me about 5 different facts about pinnipeds. Now, there's one page on your homework page where your homework is. There's only one page that you need to turn in. The rest of them are just fun pages if you want to do them. Okay. So, and everything needs to be turned in Tuesday night before class. If any of you are missing work, when you turn it in, I do see that. But if you are going in and correcting the work that you had wrong, then you need to email me and say, Mrs. Philippek, I'm in the marine science class and I corrected week 2's homework. Okay. And that way I know whose work I need to check. Okay. All right. Any questions for today?